Good morning. Good morning. How are y'all? Have we all recovered from the holiday in the middle of the week last week? It's Monday in case you need to know that, okay? It's Monday, July 10th. It says on the screen there. So, yeah, it's hard to know. That holiday really threw me off in the middle of the week. But then most of you, given the email responses I received, took last week off work anyway. So I don't know. Those of us that had to work, we got it done. So hi, welcome to Franklin Tomorrow Frank Talks, July 10th. I'm Mindy Tate, CEO of Franklin Tomorrow, and we're so glad you're here this morning, full house. We've got a lot going on this morning and some really great information to give you about On the Road Again. But first I want to welcome, we've got our panel and I'll introduce them in a minute, but I want to welcome, we've got Franklin Mayor Ken Moore. Wave, say hi. We've got City Administrator Eric Stuckey, and we've got two Franklin Aldermen, Brandy Blanton and Ann Peterson. I think those are the only two here, so thank you all for being here. We appreciate you so much. We also appreciate very much our partners in presenting Frank Talks, including Atmos Energy, who's a sustaining partner for Franklin Tomorrow, and we appreciate their support. We also have a sustaining partner in Williamson Health, and they've got something to share with us this morning, but Greg will come on up. Greg Broy, sorry.
As you'll see on the screen a few weeks ago, we had our Race to the Ribbon, which you'll see in a minute of why we call it that, but we had our first phase of our new emergency room open. We had a few special guests, including Mr. Darrell Waltrip and another country singer you might recognize. So let's take a look at the new emergency room at Williamson Medical Center.
Gentlemen, start your engines.
This hospital. It's a great hospital. They got great doctors. It's growing. Phil's done an incredible job. All the people that are involved with this expansion.
Our children were born here, and I never will forget, such a great day in our lives, and this hospital will always be associated with our children coming into the world.
Today's ribbon cutting marks one more reason how our independent, freestanding nonprofit organization is well positioned to meet the region's needs today and into the future.
I'm thankful to know that the Williamson Health Team is committed to making our community stronger, healthier, and more welcoming for the thousands of residents who move to Williamson County.
Our community deserves a state-of-the-art health facility, and today we have delivered on the first phase of our promise. Opening the new expansion of our adult ER is just the beginning of what our community will experience as we work toward the completion of our $200 million project.
A new reception area and 3 private registration stations will smooth the admissions process so that patients can be registered and seen more quickly. Multiple triage rooms and 10 new exam rooms will expedite patient care. These essential elements of our expansion and renovation enhance our patient experience.
We are also delighted to announce that to date, 6 corporate partners have joined Darrell Waltrip Automotive Group in our More for You, Close to Home capital campaign.
No matter where you are in Williamson County, exceptional care is here.
Thank you so much. It is wonderful to have the support of Williamson Health, and we have for many years as a sustaining partner in building community, because I don't say it often enough to a group like this, but our mission is to engage the community, foster collaboration, and then advocate for a shared vision for the future of Franklin. And we do that through the programs that we produce, through the information we share on our website and social media, but we also do that by bringing people together and having conversations. And Williamson Medical Center has been a great partner. So as has our friends at Renaissance Bank, and we appreciate them. Their videos are normally a little less serious than the Williamson Health ones, but so we'll play this one from Renaissance Bank.
Not all heroes wear capes. Some wear jerseys. Others, neckties. What makes them heroes is not what they wear, but how they strive for the good of others. At Renaissance, we suit up to help you succeed. So join us and harness the full power of Renaissance.
So that was pretty powerful. I liked that. That was great. So as I mentioned, our mission is to engage the community and foster collaboration. And one way we're collaborating right now is in creating a local I voted sticker for the upcoming Franklin City election in October. It's just a fun way to highlight our community. This contest has been done across the country and around the world even, but we are working with the Williamson County Election Commission, and Chad Gray and Evelyn are here from the Election Commission. And if you need to register to vote, or you need to change your address, get some information about voting, then we would encourage you to do that. But this contest is just a way. We'll have youth winners, and we'll have adult winners. And we will print up to 4 designs for this competition, just as a way to highlight the assets of our community. And if you need some inspiration, it's all around you. And these are just some pictures of some of the assets that exist in our community. There are forms out there. You can find this information on our website, franklintomorrow.org, and across the top is a link to the I Voted sticker contest. But encourage your kids. The biggest thing is it's got to say, I voted, okay? It's got to say, I voted on there. But thank you to the Williamson County Election Commission for their support. Jonathan Duda, their chair, is not able to be here today, but some of their members are here. Raise your hands, Donna. Wanda and Rod are here from the Election Commission along with Chad, and we appreciate their support for this. But inspiration for this contest is all around you. And I think it'll be just something fun to create. And then I think the Election Commission is looking, as they have 3 elections next year, is that right? Maybe taking this contest on for next year, but we could help them coordinate, or some other organization could help them coordinate this contest. And so we've got forms available, or as I said, you can download those and make those available. So I'm really glad to see a good crowd here for July morning. And our topic today is on the road again. It's pretty timely, because I didn't even realize this, but tomorrow night, the city staff gets to talk with the full board of mayor and aldermen about capital investment program, which is how you build roads and other capital projects and civic buildings and other things that get built in our town. And so it's a great way for us to sort of get a sneak peek of that before they have that conversation, which will be probably a little more in depth. But I'm going to turn it over to Paul Holzen and Jonathan Marston. I'm going to bring you the clicker, and you'll be able to see your slides there if you want to see them. How about that?
Hello? Testing. All right, so my name's Jonathan Marston. I'm the Assistant Director of Engineering, and I'm supervise the capital projects section of the engineering department. So we're the ones who build roadways and build a lot of your major park facilities. We used to do water and sewer projects, but now our water management department does that. So we still do water and sewer with our transportation projects, but really do more of that. They do more of the major projects themselves, so plant projects. So obviously today we're talking about on the road again, so let's talk about transportation projects. And what you're seeing on the screen there is without any labels, but basically you're starting with that very first one, the little guy thinking there is kind of the planning stages of a project. And that's kind of generally where a project starts, is, an idea comes to mind, and we start with planning it, getting a concept in mind, and then you go to that the leaf is the environmental section. Environmental is very important. It's about going and making sure that we're not infecting any, historical things, any cultural issues, any true environmental issues, whether that be natural resources or whether it's actually animals or any kind of critters in the area. So we check into those kind of things. And really the next thing is truly designing and getting something on paper. Getting that design to a point where we can actually go into right-of-way and actually acquire the right-of-way or the easements necessary to move that project along. And obviously, and that's kind of where the cone is. The cone and the dump truck are really kind of the same thing, but it's the right-of-way then and construction. And construction is really where everybody thinks the project starts, but there's a lot of work on the front end of that, getting it approved through all the different agencies, depending on whether there's funding involved and what type of funding there's involved. Specifically, there's always funding involved, but what kind of funding is involved, whether that's just local funding, federal funding, state funding, private partnership funding. But then when it gets to construction, that's where everybody gets mad because they see all the traffic cones and the traffic barrels. I always call the traffic barrels the state flower, so it's orange and white. So I'm a Tennessee grad, so I don't mind the traffic barrel myself. It's orange and white. It's always the right color. So I appreciate it. I'm one of the few that drives through, and I'm fine with it because I'm always entertained by what's going on with the traffic diversions and all that kind of good stuff. So just think of that next time you're driving through. It's just the state flower. So, but that's the general process of what's going on, and it really starts with coming up with that idea. And for our idea locally with the city, it's kind of our major thoroughfare plan. We call that Connect Franklin, a comprehensive multimodal transportation plan or comprehensive transportation plan. And really that's about having those ideas out there, a long-range network. It's a 25-year plan of what we think and what we've modeled and think is needed out there. That doesn't say that we're going to necessarily build all those things, but that's what we think is needed based on growth in the area. And that changes every few years. We redo that plan. And that's where those ideas start. And those ideas also don't necessarily have to be on that plan, but then we do probably 3 to 5 years, we come back to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and do a capital investment plan, and that's kind of what was alluded to earlier by Mindy. And we're actually going to start that process again tomorrow night. And actually, that's where the projects themselves get funded by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and they fund a list of projects that we actually then proceed to work on. And they may come from the major thoroughfare plan. They may come from an idea that comes up during the CIP process. They may come up just during the years, and they come up through our annual budget process. But a lot of times, the major projects come up through our CIP process. Think of Franklin Road. Think of your McEwen Drives. Those kind of projects that are major funded projects come through that process. And that's where the board says, yes, we're going to proceed and fund this from all the way from design all the way through construction. So the last time we did that was in 2019, and the board actually funded, I believe it was 30 projects through that process. It's a little over $200 million. Well, actually, it's almost $300 million worth of projects. So that's kind of where we're at with that, and that involves bonded funds, local general fund, cash in hand, and actually federal funds and grants that we get. And that's kind of leads me to the next slide is people say, well, why does it take so long once the board says go ahead? Why don't you hit the ground running and have something designed and why aren't we building? Well, when we get federal funds, and I know that's hard to see, but that's a huge flow chart, and it's an older flow chart. But the funny part about that flow chart is that actually, as much as that is, that begins on step 3. They can't even get all the steps on that flow chart. There's so many steps, and that's from our state DOT, and there's nothing that they're doing wrong there. There's just so many steps when you're dealing with state and federal funds to make sure that you're doing the right thing. And if you mess up any one of those steps along the way that you can't fix, they can actually come back at any step along the way during design, right-of-way, or construction if you've messed up any one of those steps and ask you to repay every bit of those funds. So you can actually get to construction. They find out that you've messed up something in design that cannot be fixed and remedied, that you can repay everything at the end. So that's why we have to make sure that we cross all the T's, dot all the I's when we get everything through. So there's a lot of things when you're dealing with taxpayer funds that we have to do and get right along the way. So there's a lot that goes behind the scenes. When we say we're going to do something fast, people are like, man, you say fast, it's a different definition. Yeah, absolutely, it's a different definition. We have government fast and we have normal person fast. So we try to do normal person fast, but we end up doing government fast. So it's two different things. But we try to do as fast as we can and deliver those projects. We want those projects delivered just as much as the general public wants those projects delivered. But a lot of times it's funding dependent of what we can do, and we have to follow the process all the way through. And that's our local process, the state process, the federal process. A few of the projects that are in the pipeline right now that are major projects, Columbia Avenue, we've been working on that one and had asked for that one for many years, and actually got that funding back in about 2011, 2012, and started the process basically as a blank slate. At NEPA, we actually went to the public and said, what do you want to see here? Which was very confusing for a lot of people. They said, we thought you were going to show us what you were going to do here. We said, well, we want to come back and show you, what do you want us to do here? So we came back, and it was a little confusing for everybody, but we said, what do you want us to do here? So we finally got through that whole process. It was a little painful, but we finally got through, and we're going to end up there with a 5-lane section with some medians in sections that it makes sense, sidewalk on portions of it where it doesn't affect the property owners too much. We finally, just last week, got our NEPA, the environmental document, reapproved. We got it approved once, and like I said, some of the tape we go through and some of the process we go through, we got that approved, so that's going to let us begin the right-of-way, the actual acquisition process of getting appraisals and getting easements and right-of-way. So we'll start that here in the upcoming couple of months. So we'll probably be in that process probably at least a couple of years acquiring property along that corridor. It's about 60 properties that we'll be acquiring property from. And we're not acquiring whole properties, but we're acquiring slivers of right-of-way and slivers of easements for utilities to be moved and for the sidewalk to be built. Because you can imagine going from a 2- and 3-lane section to a 5-lane section, we have to acquire property. And for the power lines to be moved, it requires movement of a lot of things through that corridor. So once that all that property has been acquired, then we'll go through and build through construction, and that'll probably be about a 30-month process, so 2.5 years to actually construct that. So we're still probably about 4.5, 5 years away from that being done. Next project. East McEwen Drive, this one's a little closer. We've actually got all the right-of-way in hand on this one, and we're looking towards bidding later this year as soon as we get final approvals from the state. This one has federal funding as well as the last one I didn't mention on the last one. The last one actually has 80% funding through the federal government, and the state, because it's a U.S. and state on the previous, and I'll actually jump back so it's a little less confusing, on Columbia Avenue, because it's a state and federal route, TDOT agreed to do the local match, the 20% local match that we would normally pay. So this is actually paid for entirely by the state and local government. We're managing it because it's our local road, but it is a state and federal route, so they're actually paying for the entire project. And it's actually it will be about a $40 to $45 million project when it's all said and done. East McEwen Drive, that's been one that's been on our radar for a long time. We've built out, and I've been here long enough. I've been here almost 18 years now, and I've worked on the McEwen Drive interchange a little bit. I was introduced to that when I first started. I did McEwen Drive Phase 3, which was from Carruthers Parkway to the roundabout. I worked on the connector, which was the leg of the roundabout that connected to Old McEwen. I've redone the roundabout, I think, at least 3 times. So I joked for a while and called it McMarston. So that's my last name. So I've got a lot of experience with McEwen Drives, and the next phase is McEwen Phase 4, and that goes from where we've kind of widened it to 4 lanes already, just past the roundabout, to Wilson Pike, and gets that to a 4-lane median divided roadway that basically matches what you see on McEwen today. We've got all the right-of-way, and we're waiting for the state to approve what we have left on the plans and the updated plans. We expect to bid that later this year, and that construction, because you're going through a lot of mountainous topography there, is probably going to take about 3 years is what we're expecting there to build that. So we expect to start construction early next year. And that's got 80% federal funding up to about $22.4 million. And we expect the total cost there to be about $40 to $45 million. Again, about $45 million there for construction. Another big one we get asked about a lot is the Long Lane Old Paytonsville Road Connector Project. If you drive down 65, you see the 3 bridge piers kind of just standing there, monuments to this project, which it is coming. We're in design right now. We expect to be done with design later this year. Then we'll move into right-of-way. And actually, we've already got far enough along. We've purchased one large piece of property adjacent to the Ag Center. That's probably the largest piece of property we'll purchase. That was already purchased about a year ago. It's about a $4 million purchase when we purchased that piece of property. This one will be dealing with about 50 property owners, and again, will probably take 2 to 2.5 years to deal with property owners. This one, we don't have any federal or state funding. This is entirely funded by the by your local tax dollars, through impact fees from local development and bond funds, general fund. And actually, oddly enough, this was, no, not oddly enough, but it's a very important project. It made itself, how to say this, it showed how important it was when we had that bridge accident during construction of the actual interchange widening down there, how important it is to have more connectivity across the interstate. Because when that interchange was closed, there was really nothing across the interstate there, and you had to go all the way either to 840 and go around, and go to some of the interchanges on either side on 840, or you had to go all the way up to 96 to go around. So this is not an interchange, but it's a crossing, but it also redoes all of Old Paytonsville Road that's still open ditch. It also redoes the section of Long Lane up to kind of that 90-degree curve. And this, again, will probably be about a 2.5 to 3 year project when we start construction. So we're still about 5 to 6 years away from being complete with this project. Again, this is about a $45 to $50 million job when it's all said and done when we get started with it. And then this is all local taxpayer money. But this is the only project, actually, the last time we did the capital investment program that the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, all 9 members agreed on this one. So this was actually the top priority that came out of that process. And we're working hard to get this one done. A lot of design, a lot of survey to get this one done. It's a very big project. I'll save that one for Paul here in a second. But one of the things that we get asked is, you know, how do we come up with funding? And I sit on the Mayor Moore sitting there. He sits on the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization. He sits on their Transportation Policy Board, which helps make decisions about how federal funding gets spent in our area. And I sit on the Transportation Coordinating Committee, which is like the planning commission for the MPO. And what we do is come through a large planning process, and that's the Regional Transportation Plan, which is like the major thoroughfare plan for the region. And that's the first step for getting federal funds. So there's projects that are on that list. For instance, the interchange reconstruction at 96, that's on that list to get funded. That's worth $50 million from federal funding in the future. So that's on the list, and I tell people that that's on the list for 2035. People say, oh, 2035. It is a long time away, but that's actually good news for it to get funded when I put it on that list, because it's showing that it's a need, and it's actually a funded project on that list. So the next step from that is, once it reaches its horizon year, is it goes into the Transportation Improvement Program, which is like our CIP for the federal program, that it actually gets its funds. So once it gets into that program, then we actually get those funds programmed. So then that's when, excuse me, when we can actually start programming the funds at a local level and moving into our CIP and showing that as being a project that we can move forward with those funds. So like a Columbia Avenue, when the money moved forward to the CIP or to the TIP, the TIP, we could then move that forward in our CIP and actually move the project forward. So it's a little bit of background on how we can move projects forward with that federal funding. It does add steps, but it also takes the burden off of our local taxpayers and spreads that burden around nationally with those regionally significant projects. And now really the next step is to go to the CIP, and I'll turn that over to Paul, and he'll talk about the next steps of planning the next CIP and what we do about showing where we're at and make progress on our current CIP that we're working on, and how we roll that into additional projects, and how we look at how project costs may have increased. I don't say they may have increased, they've definitely increased. We've definitely seen a huge inflation over the last few years with regard to construction costs of projects, and how we handle that in the future, and how we handle additional project needs, and Paul can talk a little bit about that.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. I'm Paul Holzen, the Engineering Director for the City of Franklin. And as Mindy stated earlier, we're getting ready to start the CIP process, where what we do is we look at what are our short-term needs in the community and what are our long-term needs over a 10-year period. So in conjunction with all the different city departments, we try to put together a list of those projects that are needed. And there's probably around 70 transportation and parks projects out there that are truly needed. And then we ultimately will then go through an educational process with the board where we present those projects to them and talk about it. We look at things like economic development. We look at safety. We look at existing businesses. More importantly than trying to facilitate economic development, we need to take care of our existing businesses. And so that's where you see us working really closely with planning and our board to try to link land use needs in the Cool Springs area to support them, like the McEwen Interchange, which we recently completed. And we also look similar areas where we believe high growth in that investment is coming and where ultimately the board wants to see development happen. And so like the Goose Creek area, you see Long Lane up there, and a lot of development happening down there. A lot of the utilities are there. And so you see our board really focusing on pushing projects in that area as well. So what we'll do is over the next 6 to 8 months is we'll go through an educational process with them where we present the projects, we listen to their feedback, we add projects that maybe they want to be considered, and then they go through a prioritization process of where they rank the projects as to whatever their priority is, and then ultimately we look at funding and funding capacity. And there's a lot of projects that are needed, and funding is always the challenging part of having enough funding to do them all. And so we'll go through that exercise with them. Ultimately, what we'll end up with is a priority list of projects that they want to see completed, and we'll go ahead and put schedules together for it. We also look at opportunities. Where can we partner? Are there projects that we can get ready for state and federal grants, like a trail project or a roadway project? And so that all gets factored into it. There's funding in different categories, and so it becomes quite complicated. But ultimately, what we end up with is a list of priority projects that we then start working on as hard as we can. And these projects are very challenging. Sometimes we're moving 7 to 10 utilities in trying to keep projects active, and that's just, or utility services active, and that's really why these projects take a long time. But when we get to construction, they go very smoothly, or as smoothly as you can expect for a construction project, and we try to deliver them as quickly as we can. So over the next 8 months, you'll see us moving forward with that process. So I'd encourage you to watch our board meetings, talk to your alderman, and it's always an exciting time. And we typically try to revisit that every 2 to 3 years with our board and make sure that their priorities are aligned and we're working on what they want us to move forward with. And that's about all I have. So if we can move on to Bike Walk Franklin.
Yes, so, we have to say that which comes first, the road or the walking or the vehicle, but Bike Walk Franklin, they're cutting paths and making their way across Franklin without necessarily doing it on a roadway or those adjacent sidewalks. But I will say that having sidewalks and connectivity, the opportunity to be outside your vehicle has been something that the citizens of Franklin have shared as part of their vision for our community. We want to be able to walk somewhere without having to get in the vehicle. So this is an important thing. And if you like this, Ned brought some stickers if you want one out there on the table. So Ned Dannenberg, so we'll have you repeat that question at the end because we're going to try to get through everything. Or Ned, you can address that. But yeah, we're going to try to move through. Thank you. Ned Dannenberg, yeah.
All right. Oh, I need to advance it, don't I? I'm in charge. All right, so I'm Ned Dannenberg here with Bike Walk Franklin. A little bit about our parent organization, Bike Walk Tennessee. It's a nonprofit based in Knoxville advocating for safer walking and biking across the state, and we're sort of spread out into these committees wherever there are enough volunteers in a particular city or town passionate about this issue. So you'll find us in Cleveland, Chattanooga, out in Memphis. Brentwood's active. They've done a lot of work to add mountain bike trails to Smith Park up there. Here in Franklin, and then notably we're actually separate from Walk Bike Nashville. They're their own nonprofit, but we do collaborate and talk with them a lot. So in terms of the programs we've been doing here in Franklin, parents may be most familiar with our Walk, Bike, Roll to School. So this is part of a national campaign. It involves thousands of schools every year. They pick a day in May and October just to encourage kids to try walking, biking, or rolling if they use a wheelchair to get to campus. And so this is something I've actually, talking with older adults, they all remember a time when maybe walking or biking to school was the norm, and they'll tell you, it was uphill both ways in the snow, I'm sure. But and that's really changed over the past few decades. Our communities, schools are often built sort of on the edge of town where the land is cheap. It may be in front of a big highway that's not connected to neighborhoods. But we've been really fortunate with the Franklin Special School District that, their elementary and middle schools are really sort of embedded in the neighborhoods, and they've been great partners, letting us work with Johnson Elementary, Franklin Elementary, and Poplar Grove over the past 2 years. So I'll show you a little bit of the media coverage we were able to get.
It was a nice morning to get some fresh air. Students at Johnson Elementary School in Franklin enjoyed Walk, Bike to School Day. About 100 students, parents, and staff got outside this morning to help celebrate the opening of the multi-use path on Highway 96. A group called Bike Walk Franklin helped to organize the day. They worked to make the streets safer for bikers and pedestrians in the area.
So we have coverage there. Another event we were doing just last week of helping with bike parking at some big city events. So we worked with the Friends of Franklin Parks just to open up that option for folks coming into Harlansdale. You can see we had about a dozen folks, including some families, use our bike racks. We also distributed these little flashing lights to let people get home safe after dark, since a lot of folks don't always ride with lights on their bikes. So we're hoping to partner with them again next year, and also reaching out to like Pilgrimage Festival and other big events just to offer that as an option for folks instead of driving. So in a little bit, as Mindy was talking about, one thing you really hear in community feedbacks is residents wanting that connectivity. So our downtown's a big destination. People love being able to get out and walk around with their families. So this was a board from a meeting about the factory district, just asking if you wanted to get from downtown to the factory, what mode of transportation would you want? And you can see the majority of the stickers up top there, folks saying, I'd like to be able to walk. So that's a great service now from the Franklin Road Sidewalk that you can now do that. And it comes up again just even on the free form option. This was a session on the Envision Franklin, actually held in this room back in the spring, and you can see even the free form options are people asking for bike lanes.
That's my Post-it note, by the way, the top purple one.
Saying bike lanes, walking paths, intermodal transportation. Really sort of speaking to us, saying they want to be able to enjoy that small town feel without necessarily having to get in their car. So all that was compiled from Envision Franklin to the Breakfast with the Mayor slide you may have seen back in April. And so from a planning perspective, what does the city need to most be thinking about? Housing still #1 priority for all of our residents, but transportation was second. And then within that transportation subgroup, that largest bar chart down there was people asking for more walkability around town. So it's definitely exciting to hear that it's on the mind of engineering. It's definitely on the mind of us, and we're here to try to help however we can. In terms of like areas, what that looks like when it's not going right. So this is Eddie Lane, for example. They've been active, actually starting this petition even before I was involved with Bike Walk Franklin. Almost 150 people living in that area just asking for, we need sidewalks. A parent sent me this photo of their child. It's sort of a sidewalk to nowhere. That road, it's very narrow, very busy, and you're sort of trapped in your house if you're trying to get out, walking or biking. So it's definitely an area that would be ripe for investment. You're less than a mile from the factory. You have Fort Granger right there. So it would certainly be attractive for folks to get out there. But like Paul and Jonathan were saying, it's a funding issue. The Connect Franklin plan says this could easily be $10 million, and that was a pre-COVID estimate. So you're probably looking at more tax dollars than that to do this. But it's certainly something that I think residents would be happy to see. So we'll keep lobbying for those types of projects. Another example, so this is Highway 96, Murfreesboro Road. It is going to be a TDOT route, but it means sort of the sidewalks are, it's a patchwork just based on when the particular development went in. But right now, if you wanted to leave your car, say, at the Dodge dealership and walk to O'Charlie's or Subway, well, this is the sidewalk you're going to run into. And imagine if you were in a wheelchair or something, it's a pretty scary situation. So this sort of goes back again. It's going to need to be a city project. TDOT is great about, they will consider multimodal in new construction. That's how we ended up with the Mac Hatcher multi-use trail that's been really popular. But for something like this, they'll repave the road, but they're not necessarily going to go back and add sidewalks for us. So it's something we definitely want to keep in mind from a city perspective. And then finally, we have been fortunate that it is rare for drivers to run into pedestrians in Franklin, but it has happened, unfortunately. So this was last month at Karen Bridge in Cool Springs. These were 3 teenagers doing everything right. They were in the crosswalk. They pressed that button to give them the flashing lights, and they still ended up being hit by a car, unfortunately, just because of the volume of traffic and the speed on that road makes it really dangerous for a pedestrian. And I actually heard from a father down there who said, I've no longer let my kid walk to the pool house or a friend's just because it means walking, across the street. So that can be, sad is trying to be as family friendly as we can if, parents are still running into these concerns. So we have been fortunate that Alderwoman Beth Berger is aware of this. I've seen she's speaking with the HOAs and has met with the city just talking about how we can have a little bit of better signage to boost safety in that area. So we know Franklin loves to be on the top of those national lists about great places to live, great places to move. One place they've actually been struggling, though, is from this Walkable Communities organization. We've actually applied twice over the past few years, and so far have just snagged an honorable mention. So this is a group that is evaluating how central is walkability to the city planning? Do they have someone dedicated to walking projects? Is there a safe routes to school program? Things like that. And just pointing out, you don't have to be like a walking mecca like New York City to rank highly. There are smaller towns like Charlottesville, Virginia, Arlington, Virginia, Decatur, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta, that have been able to rank really highly on this list just from putting that focus on pedestrians and committing to building complete streets that accommodate all types of users. So we talked a little bit about the Connect Franklin plan. I did want to just pull out an excerpt from that because it really does speak to the core of what we like to advocate for. So as roads become more congested, elected officials and city staff seek better ways to move people from place to place. Roads cannot be expanded infinitely, meaning facilities such as bikeways, sidewalks, and transit are important to foster multimodal options. So engineering force can tell you we can't infinitely add lanes to Cool Springs. We have to start thinking about, are there other options to let people get around town without needing to be in their cars. And the second part of that is it would mean we need a combination of bicycle and pedestrian facility types recommended to heading towards a complete system that accommodates all ages and skill levels and abilities. So what that means is, maybe your person bike commuting to downtown is probably going to be more comfortable riding in a busy bike lane on Hillsborough Road, but a family maybe taking their child on a tricycle to elementary school is going to be more comfortable on a sidewalk or a trail that's away from traffic. So really accommodating different comfort levels for folks wanting to get around town. And we are excited looking to the future. This does touch a lot on the CIP project and the Connect Franklin documents we were talking about. So Connect Franklin does envision this whole pedestrian and walkway network. All of those solid lines, though, are proposed things that haven't been built yet. So you can see it's quite a lot of work to do to really build out, being able to get around town, hit all those major arteries on a bike or on a sidewalk. But we definitely do keep an eye on these types of projects. They're on the CIP side. Some things we didn't get a chance to talk about, but are really exciting from a bike walk perspective. That does include the bridge from Harlansdale Park to Chestnut Bend that's already under construction. That'll be a great pedestrian connectivity for folks on that side of town. And they're also in the early stages of a trail from Lewisburg Pike that'll start at the railroad tracks and go down to the eastern flank. So that's in the sort of the land acquisition stage right now. And that's a project we're definitely going to be keeping an eye on and letting you all know about. So if you want to keep up with us, we have Facebook and Instagram pages that I can give you. The QR code will take you right there if you want to follow along, and I appreciate y'all's time this morning.
Thank you, Ned. I do want to mention that we have in the past, Franklin Tomorrow has coordinated through our Get Fit Franklin initiative and other projects a walkability audit, and we're working on possibly doing that again this fall with the citizens' input. And doing a walkability audit is about the citizens and measuring stress points for them and seeing where those holes exist. And so we're looking at doing that and launching it either in September or October, Frank Talks. So we will keep you informed and make sure you're on our list for information on that. Ned, would it be ironic if I put this on my car? I don't know. I mean, Bike Walk Franklin? I don't know. If you do something that maybe wouldn't be as ironic, these are out there as well, so you could pick that up. But thanks for that. And Glenn McGee he is the chairman of the Franklin the TMA. The TMA board, and we appreciate him being here. But also want to say hi to Debbie Henry, their CEO. Good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mindy. As Mindy said, my name is Glenn McGee, and I am chairman of the TMA, and Debbie Henry, our CEO, has tremendous amount of experience and her passion for what she does and her team does within the TMA. And as we look at all these different types of transportation to move people around our city as well as our community, both regionally and around the state. And as Ned said, looking at many different options for this multimodal options, I mean, that's really what the TMA does every day. The TMA is a 501c3, was created over 35 years ago to help transit and really these mobility options within our community. And it's governed by the board, by the board of the TMA. It's funded by federal, state, and local transportation funds, but really driven by our team at the TMA. And that's probably what most excites me to be a part of this organization is the team members of the TMA. There's 35 employees. 24 of those are our drivers, our transit drivers. And they come from many different places in professional transportation. Could be a school bus driver at one point in time, or a professional over-the-road driver, or many different places, but very excited and passionate to do what they do and serve our people within the community of Franklin and beyond. And then we have 11 admin staff. And what's exciting about that is they too are very passionate about what they do. With over 200 years among those 11 people of transportation and not-for-profit type work. And so when we look at these funds, and these guys talk about how important it is to get the dollars to do what we do a lot from a transportation standpoint in this community through grants. And if somebody's not on top of the federal, state, local type grants we can go after, then we lose those opportunities. But we have some phenomenal advocates within TMA working for our community to go get those funds, to make sure we're able to get those funds to make things happen in this community that we all, as citizens of this community, really want as we look into the future of how we move people around. So who is the TMA? And the TMA is really a leader in customizing environmental friendly, multimodal transportation solutions for employees, employers, and communities within Middle Tennessee. The TMA operates and manages the Franklin Transit on behalf of the Franklin Transit Authority. And all those funds come through the Franklin Transit Authority, and we are the solution for the Franklin Transit Authority and providing the Franklin Transit VanStar. VanStar is I'm going to talk more and more about, but that's a regional commuter van pool program. We're actually in 14 counties of Middle Tennessee, all based and driven right here in Franklin as a part of TMA. The commuter employer solutions, that's really where we harness commuter programs and patterns for companies. So we have folks within the organization of the TMA that will go into our employers in our community and help them analyze where their employees are coming from, how we can help them get there easier, save money, as well as maybe take a few cars off the roads. So that's a program we have and run and administer as we go into these employers and do that. So if you're here as part of a big employer and you want something like that analyzed, we would certainly hope that you would give us a call. We promote air quality, minimize traffic congestion. Those are things that we're all concerned about. And then really on the technology side, I guess since I've been a part of the board, the one thing I've noticed since we've been there, I've been there over the last 6 or so years, is constantly looking to see what technology is doing and how it's advancing what we do. And a big part of that is all the different things I'm going to talk about, but certainly making it user-friendly. Because if it's easy for us to use, then we'll probably take advantage of it, right? So that's really where we spend a lot of time, and our focus is in that. And so if you look at our new initiatives, the digital display screens, So in many locations around our community, both at large employer, office buildings, right here at the college, you'll see a digital screen that shows where all the transit is at that particular time, what time it's going to be there, that you could pick it up, and you can see the actual route that you're on. So that's very important. Language line service, not super easy for me to say, but we live in a very diverse community. And we want to make sure that all of our people, our bus drivers, as well as the folks that are handling people at our transit station, if you will, to be able to communicate clearly and effectively with people that may not speak the same language. So we have programs in place to allow our drivers as well as our staff to do that. So something very, very important. Extended routes. We're constantly looking at where can we improve and add more routes for our community. New van pools. Other business solutions as we work with our community. And so all those things are very important things the TMA, its folks, and the board are working on. The Franklin Transit Authority. We work for the Franklin Transit Authority as its group that administers Franklin Transit. And so within the authority, you know, their tagline is we move Franklin. And so the Franklin Transit Authority is the governing body for Franklin Transit. And they're the direct recipient of all those funds. And so they maintain those funds, they monitor those funds, and then TMA carries out the responsibility of moving folks around within Franklin Transit. So just an overview of Franklin Transit. You know, I think that everybody in this room could probably tell their own stories about COVID. But as someone that was able to witness what was going on in our transit system here locally during COVID, I was really fascinated by, and when I talk about such an incredible team, is all those drivers spent extra time cleaning buses and creating ways that they could get people onto those buses safely and move them around our community, because so many people in our community depend on Franklin Transit. And a lot of us in this room may not really understand that or know that. But it's very, very true. And we have a lot of different services. One service is the TOD service. That's transit on demand. So that's prearranged, curb-to-curb services within the city of Franklin. I had a friend that I went to college with, had a conversation with him not too long ago, and he didn't even know I was a part of TMA, but he was telling me a story about how neat it was that he had a brother that was somewhat handicapped living in an assisted living here in town, and really his life had come alive because he had this service he could take a part of. And again, he had no idea I was connected to TMA, but really brought to life what our TOD service does for people out there that don't really have any other options. It makes them totally mobile. So that was really a neat story, and those stories we hear about every day. And we were talking about apps earlier and different things, updated websites and apps. There's an app called Follow Frank app, and that allows you to watch Franklin Transit in real time. So if you want to know how close it is to you and is it something you could take advantage of, then you can do that. And, you know, for so many reasons, all of us could probably find an opportunity to take advantage of transit, and that's certainly a good way to do it. Another great initiative we have is with the high schools in our community. With Centennial High School, Renaissance High School, Franklin High School. These are all schools on a fixed route. And if a student needs to take advantage of Franklin Transit, they can do that. And so that's something really neat. We work in concert with Franklin High School in their School to Work program, which enables students to see and understand how they can utilize public transportation one day in their adult lives to get to and from work. Maybe it's in this community. Maybe we're helping educate them for future communities that they might be in as well. Shuttle services. I hope that some of you have gotten to take advantage of some of the community events where our shuttle services are there, where it's Pumpkin Fest, Main Street event, the Christmas, a lot of different things that we're involved in there. And when I think about bikes and walking and those kind of things, I remember many, many years ago being in Flagstaff, Arizona, about 15 years ago, and I just sort of thought it was funny that there was all these bike racks on these public transportation in a small community, and people actually putting their bikes on there and riding. And believe it or not, that happens in our community a lot. We have bike racks on every single transportation vehicle within the Franklin Transit here in our community, and it is unbelievable the number of, especially young people. Debbie calls it sort of that last mile connector, if you will, where they'll take one of our transit vehicles so far, get off, ride their bike, whatever it might be, and we're seeing more and more adults do that as well. So it's a great thing that we have. Certainly hope you guys will promote that for us as well. You know, the different events and promotions, the teens and tweens, in the summertime, they can ride our transit vehicles for 50%. So we're trying to encourage them to take advantage of our public transportation to get around our community. So that's 50 cents a ride. Maybe they're working somewhere where their parents don't have to take them or don't have the ability to take them. So this is something that we promote quite heavily. Our veterans and active military can ride for free. What a great program and a great way to give back to them for their service to our nation and our community. So that's something we do. The festival shuttles, the Dickens of Christmas, Pilgrimage, Main Street, just all a little bit of what we use Franklin Transit for. Additionally, during the holidays, there's this whole hop and ride. It's free from, I think you were talking about the walking in between the factory and downtown. And we have that ability to take you back and forth. It might be bad weather or whatever, or not worth walking, or not able to walk, and you can take advantage of the transportation in that way. So a lot of different events, a lot of different promotions that we do with Franklin Transit. You know, the other thing is, you know, is who do we serve? Believe it or not, we serve a lot of commuters, people getting to and from work. The Nissan headquarters, different car dealerships, NHC Cool Springs, Lasco, Kroger's, Publix, Hampton Inn. That's just a few of the things that we have. We have several hotels that are on, restaurants. We have hotels on fixed routes, but restaurants on fixed routes as well. Downtown restaurants, the Cool Springs restaurants, those kind of things. If you're in and about one of these hotels or you live in areas on a fixed route, you can take advantage of that as well. Seniors. We have a lot of seniors that take advantage of our public transportation for many, many reasons. Folks with disabilities. Service dogs are welcome on our transportation, and we get that a lot. Certainly, we've talked about the tweens and the teens, and a lot of people just choose to ride with us for various reasons and just decide not to drive. But we're thankful for our local residents that take advantage of it, as well as the tourists that visit our community. VanStar. Many of you may have seen our VanStar vans in and around the community. They look like what you see on the screen with the red and black logo of VanStar. And we serve the Middle Tennessee region. This is not just a Franklin effort. We're in 14 different counties, and it's amazing how well these work. And we work very, very diligently to get out and sell that and let people know it's available. We provide a late model, a commuter vehicle. We provide the insurance and the maintenance on that, and the participants pay a very low rate. So who do we serve with that? Commuters, federal employees, healthcare employees, corporate employees, manufacturer employees, warehouse employees, and just sort of a snapshot of all the different participating employers: A.O. Smith Heaters, Caterpillar Financial, Frost and Arnett, IRS, Lasco, Macy's, Pinnacle Financial, federal and state offices, Tennessee Army and Air National Guard, VA offices, and all that's just to name a few. And so what you do is you have sort of that designated driver, the person that takes care of the van. They may be coming out of Clarksville, if you will, to work downtown at one of the state offices, and they have a van full of people every day. And so we're taking several cars off the road, and the benefits can be huge, right? It's safer, reliable transportation for those communities, for those commuters. We've shown that you can, as a commuter, taking advantage of that van, save about $4,000 a year in car expense and other things, parking, et cetera, et cetera. And we're finding more and more that employers today see this as a very attractive tool for them to use within their, for their employees. Certainly as costs have risen on not only the cost of vehicle, but certainly gas, maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. We also have a guaranteed ride home. So if you're taking advantage of this van pool and something happens during the day and you need to get home, we have the ability to do that as well. So VanStar is a great program, again, under the umbrella and part of the TMA, and something we're very excited about and have a team working very, very hard on, very diligent. So if you have any questions or you want to learn more about the TMA, you can go to tmagroup.org. FranklinTransit.org. If you want to learn more about what's going on within Franklin Transit, and then Vanstar.org. So, Mindy?
Thank you so much, Glenn. Thank you to our speakers. That's okay. So we've been doing something following Frank Talks this year. We've been doing what we call On Second Thought. And so we will put that together within the next 2 weeks. If you signed up to attend this event or you showed up and signed up on the roster out there, you'll receive the email to sign up for On Second Thought. And it's really to continue a conversation from this event so that you can learn more and you'll be able to ask questions. It is a Zoom-only event. So we'll send you that link on that. I really want to encourage everyone. Thank you for being here today. There is a crisis in our community in terms of mental health and supporting each other. And Franklin Tomorrow is participating with Mayor Moore in the Find Hope Franklin initiative, and we coordinate our QPR training, which is Question, Persuade, and Refer Suicide Prevention and Mental Health Awareness Training. We have a class here, July 24th at Columbia State here. We do need you to pre-register, and we also have one on July 19th. And I would encourage you, it's an hour and a half to 2 hours of your time to know how to respond to someone who may be suffering a mental health crisis or episode. It's a great way to really feel more comfortable and know how to respond to someone. This is a deeply caring community, and so we would encourage you to be part of that. With that focus, July 25th, Breakfast with the Mayors at Rolling Hills Community Church. Our theme will be mental health awareness and the impact of addiction in our community. And we're so excited to have partnered with the New Williamson Prevention Coalition, which is the former Williamson County Anti-Drug Coalition, and to unveil their new program, which is called You Are Not Alone, TN. And we've been working on a project that will be unveiled that morning, a video project and a new website and information that is very exciting. So that is July 25th at Rolling Hills Community Church, and you can pre-register for the QPR classes or Breakfast with the Mayors through our website, franklintomorrow.org. We are going to be bringing back, as part of our civic awareness campaign, and to encourage you to participate, whether it's participating in the I Voted Sticker Art Contest or in participating in showing your civic pride. We'll be bringing back our Franklinite shirt, and we'll launch that this week, and you'll be able to purchase one through Twine Graphics and show your civic pride. Another way to show your civic pride is to have a historic Franklin license plate on the back of your car next to your Bike Walk sticker and your Franklinite sticker. It's all good. It's all good. But we appreciate you being here this morning, and I think our speakers will be here for a moment if you want to have a conversation with them. But here's a reminder of our events, and so you can pick that up or take those with you. And if you're not registered to vote or you need to change your address, Chad and Evelyn in the back of the room will be happy to help you with that and get you set up to be an active citizen here in our community. And you've done that first by being here today. And so we appreciate you very much, and go out and make it a great day.